So what, in your view, should banks be doing, wherever they're based, whether it's in Europe, Asia, America? What are the key components of an effective fraud prevention, detection and mitigation strategy?
Well, I think the first piece that we're finding is that it does start with governance. And one of the major pieces that we're seeing now is that the constituents involved in today's world, in order to understand the regulatory obligations, the business aspects of fraud, and then the IT aspects of it, there's many different constituents in this. And as a result, governance plays a key role in making sure that we understand not only how the business processes need to operate, but also then where are those IT systems, and more importantly, where is that data? And it no longer needs to sit in a siloed environment, and really needs to become an enterprise-wide initiative.
So that's the theory. It's all very well to talk about what banks should be doing with an anti-fraud strategy, but in practice, how do you implement such a strategy?
Yeah, and again, what we've seen for many organizations is they want to throw technology at the problem. But really, if you take a step back, we see that as it's a three-legged stool. And those three legs are process, technology, and training. And so I think to begin, we're working with a lot of organizations, and organizations should be looking at, how do I prevent fraud from taking place in the first place? And a lot of that is through the new account opening process. And so as you get out there and you start collecting the information, you want to stop the bad guy at the door. The more information you have, the better off you're able to do customer risk rating, the better off you're able to do enhanced due diligence, which then allows you to feed that into the systems. One of the things that we've seen today is that most of the institutions we talk to, while they have a fraudulent event, most of them say they still have that relationship with those fraudsters. Why? Because they haven't necessarily captured the right information at the time of new account opening or at the time they do business. So that feeds down then to my process or my system's going to be good as the information that I have. And then once I have the centralized system, what we're seeing now is as we sunset legacy applications, we bring in new applications that allow us to centralize what was once disparate in a siloed environment. As a result of that, our data architectures become centralized, which allows us to now gather more and more information and to really be able to see what information we have at hand and really try and detect and predict where fraud is going to be and what are those anomalies that I haven't been able to see before. And finally, training. I think what we've seen in the past is the 2 to 3 hour web-based learning module that's done once a year. We find organizations that have been successful in that has been more 15-minute bites and doing that more frequently throughout the year. And we've also seen that not only with internal employees, but also organizations now in response to the FFIEC to be able to do it external to their external customers and being able to educate them on what they can be doing to stop fraud.
Yeah, FFIEC, that's a US organization, I believe. For our
Yes.
non-US viewers, can you explain what it
Sure,
does?
that's the regulatory body which governs online banking and what types of criteria, multi-factor authentication, that institutions have to follow for online banking.
What particular fraud prevention and detection techniques are particularly effective? I'm thinking of things like, which you and I have talked about before, predictive analytics.
Absolutely.
Can you give us
Sure.
an example of that?
Yeah, no, I think predictive analytics is definitely a trend that we're seeing more and more people try and get to. But the question is how do I really get to that? How am I able to bring in new data sources, and what types of data sources do I need to do that? And I think one of the things that we see within the predictive side, or at least in order to collect that information, it becomes non-traditional fraud data. And what I mean by that is we're looking to bring in log information from either switches and hubs of what activity people are doing. We're looking at geo-IP addresses, we're pulling that in. We're pulling in information from web servers, from application servers, from database servers, their communication paths between mainframes, et cetera, in order to complete that transaction. And what that allows us to do is get a better holistic picture of what somebody's normal activity is, whether that's a customer, whether that's an internal trader, whether that's a banker. And once we understand what those normal patterns become, we're then able to understand where the high and low thresholds are and how they match to their peers. So are they doing more or less corrective and adjustments to particular types of trades? Are they opening up new accounts that they shouldn't be? And we're also pulling in social network information. So is a particular customer service representative associated with any known felons? Are they doing any activity with some of their customers that they're able to do? So do we see them opening more and more bank accounts that maybe they shouldn't be?
Yeah, that's quite advanced stuff. I'd like to ask you about taking an enterprise-wide approach to fraud management, because from what I understand, a lot of banks and other financial institutions still take a fairly siloed approach, but you quite often stress the need to take an enterprise-wide approach. What do you mean by that?
Sure, and I think enterprise-wide is for us really trying to look at and break down those silos that you have across product, whether that's through ACH, whether that's through wire, whether that's through online banking. But really, the big piece is to really understand what your scenarios are from a fraud perspective and understand how those go across the various scenarios. And what we've seen by that and why that becomes important is many financial services institutions that we see, while they have one particular silo and they have a scenario, they may only catch one leg of the fraud at the time because they only understand it from one particular piece. Now, as you look across your various products, you look across your various channels, and you be able to aggregate that information together, you might see one leg that might not come as a fraudulent activity, the second or third leg or the aggregate of all those may then show you that you have a fraud event happening. And the only way to do that now is by having centralized systems, having centralized data, and more importantly also a centralized case management system.